unnecessary intro song to totally waste your time.
Merry Christmas to all of you guys. Merry Christmas. I hope you're all having a nice day. You know, as nice as any other day. I suspect that not all of you are having a nice day. I suspect some of you are pretending to have a nice day while being annoyed by family members. I suspect some of you are like me, who are spending Christmas with your dog and your pigeons. And others of you are simply not observing it because you hate Christmas. Regardless, I hope you're all having a nice day. Why did I say that? Do I hope that? I don't know. I don't think I hope that. I'm kind of ambivalent about it, honestly. But let's talk about Christmas just because it's Christmas, in the best case scenario, somebody is sitting around with their family and just thinking, boy, oh boy, do we ever have it made. Look at us. Look at our amazing genes. Look how well we get along. Look at mom and dad. They're fantastic. They're holding hands after 50 years and they still love each other to death. That's best case scenario. But we know just by experience that most people don't have that because, especially people my age, we come from the divorce generation, right? A lot of people would think, okay, Merkley, how are you not spending Christmas with family when you have 17 or 18 siblings? I always forget. I honestly do. I can't remember if it's 18 including me or 18 plus me. I think it's 18 including me. But to which I just answer, well, there you go. You kind of answered your own question. They don't know they've answered their own question, but let me tell you something. When you come from a huge family of multiple, just divorce after divorce after divorce, my mom got married 3 times. My dad got married 3 times. The steps, they had marriages. They got divorced and remarried. Anyway, what's fun is that I stopped doing this little podcast thing in 2019 at Christmas time because I made a Christmas post. I had spent Christmas with family and certain parts of it I just didn't enjoy at all, namely interactions that I had with a couple of sisters who, quite frankly, are hard to be around, Anyway, I made a blog post called Mean Sisters. It's only a few blog posts away, but that was clear back in early 2020. Before, we had heard the rumblings of COVID at Christmas is when I first started seeing videos of Chinese people allegedly dropping dead, But it wasn't the main topic. It wasn't a big topic. I saw that. Nobody else talked about it at Christmas time, whatever. I made this podcast called Mean Sisters. It divided the family. Half my family was like, yeah, fuck yeah. I'm so glad you said that. That's the way I felt. I got closer with my stepmom because of it. My dad's last wife. Anyway, since that post, COVID has come. My parents both kicked the bucket in 2022. And so there are a lot of things that are really different, and a lot of things came really into focus around that time because of COVID. Suddenly, I think you probably had this experience too, some of you, where you just, wow. Some of the people, the way they behaved during COVID is just mind-blowing, where totally turned their back on family, their friends, their neighbors. They turned into these people that called the cops if people weren't wearing masks and anything. And these mean sisters of mine that caused me to stop that made it so miserable for me about that one podcast that I stopped doing it. I stopped recording these things. What a pussy move on my part, I admit. But I was just like, ugh. I had to think, do I want to keep family? Anyway, so COVID happens, and my nurse sisters go full bore, exactly what you expect. They were just short of being dancing nurses. In fact, they may have. I don't know. I don't know if they have TikTok, but, just that arrogant, we're the nurses, we're the necessary professions. What do they call that? Essential workers. They just full bore went into that bossy hero mode, telling everybody what to do. Get your vaccinations, you idiots. That kind of thing. So this was after the Mean Sisters podcast, that all this happened. Needless to say, it didn't draw us closer. Let's just put it that way. And then time goes by in 2022, my mom kicks the bucket in a kind of a assisted suicide kind of way, which, by the way, I found out pretty much everybody dies by assisted suicide, right? My dad died 5 months to the day after my mom. And both of them were, nurses administering morphine. And let me tell you something. Once the old person who wants to die gets on morphine, there's no coming back because they're no longer able to object. As soon as they get that morphine, see you later. And I watched my mom do the morphine thing, and then my dad more involuntarily do the morphine thing because he didn't want, the day before one of his nurses dropped him on the ground, I was talking to him on my birthday. He was talking about writing another book, blah, blah, blah. Granted, he was old and ready to go. He was 86 years old and his health wasn't great. I'm not acting like he was in great health or anything like that, but he had no desire to die. My mom did. I'm getting off track. But this was right around the holidays too. My mom kicked the bucket in January of 2022. But nurses, back to nurses. But nurses are it's just interesting in both of those scenarios to watch these nurses kind of, I don't know, man. I don't have a good opinion of nurses at all. I think it's a field that attracts the worst people, power trippy people who want to power trip not just on their fellow man, but on people who are in their most vulnerable points of their life. Literally wearing clothes with their asses hanging out. Totally vulnerable, totally exposed. I see nurses as being people that want to exert authority and control over those people. And you see all the videotapes of the nurses beating people, murdering people, blah, blah, blah. I'm going nuts on this thing. I get it. There are good nurses out there, right? But generally speaking, and my exhibit A is COVID, it's a power thing. Administering drugs. I swear, I think a lot of the nurses that are out there like being the last people to see somebody alive. I don't know. I can't tell you. I can't crawl in their brains, But there's a weird underbelly that I discovered, or let's just say it was reinforced through COVID. Putting people on ventilators, administering people drugs that, let's be honest, kept them from arguing with them. Watching my dad in the hospital years before he died, watching how the nurses behaved. It's just like they behaved a certain way, to me, very poorly, even when I was there. Even when my dad had a representative on the scene. But imagine when I leave, what goes on. No, just how many of them are chunky and fat and out of shape. And appointing themselves as these administrators of health. Oh, it's just, the whole thing is ugly. But anyway, back to family. This is part of the family thing. Around that time, when my mom was on her deathbed, basically, we all started talking about family. Again, my mom was married like 3 times. My mom disowned me when I dropped out of the Mormon church. And for the last few years of her life, she was trying to make amends to basically go to heaven. If you're a Mormon and you aren't on good terms with your kids, there's this fear that you're not going to go to heaven. So she kind of reached out to me, and I thought it was going pretty well, blah, blah, blah. I thought, okay, this is good. We're patching things up. We're playing Uno. We're playing games around the table, the holidays. You know, maybe my mom doesn't think I'm as evil as she thought I was for many years. Maybe she's warming up to it. Fast forward, long story short, she kicked the bucket, and I was barred from speaking at her funeral. Yeah, that's crazy, right? Her final wishes were to make sure her son doesn't get to speak at her funeral, you know, because she was afraid that I might say something bad about her after she's dead, you know. So, yeah, family. So lots of you guys don't realize, you know, you probably have great families and you probably take them for granted, and you don't really realize how amazing it is to have a good family that sticks together, that doesn't get divorced, you know. That's super important. But let's get back to the stepsisters and the half brothers and sisters. You know, for my whole life, Christmas was about grandma and grandpa coming down, and then all these weird visits to this ex-stepdad would come over. You'd spend Christmas at mom's house, Christmas at dad's house, and in my mind, I always made the best of it and thought, well, this is great. I get 2 Christmases, you know? And, you know, you make the best of what you can in your life. But it's weird that now that they're gone, family has taken on a completely different meaning, because when they were alive, that was the reason why you got back together with your brothers and sisters. That was the excuse. It's almost like, okay, we're all going to be in the same room because we're all visiting dad or mom. But without them there, it's just like, do I really want to be around? Do they want to be around me? You know? It's a weird, it's a strange reality check, but I can't be the only person that sees things this way. I know that it's rare for somebody to have 17 or 18 half brothers and step brothers and all that kind of shit, but some of you have maybe smaller versions of that, you know. Anyway, a couple things that I learned, you know, because I was always trying to keep things really solid with my half family, my dad's second family, after he divorced my mom. But then there's a couple of things I found out when my mom was on her deathbed. And I guess one thing I kind of knew in my life, but I didn't really know. But my dad's second wife was my mom's good friend, maybe even best friend. Yeah. So this woman who became my second stepmom was a homewrecker, you know? And my half-brothers and sisters were products of that homewrecking. Growing up, I didn't know any of this. You know, you just, hey, it's my second family away from my home base family, you know? But once everything crumbles and the parents die and all that other stuff, and then and COVID comes along and they all turn into these kind of, you know, the COVID people, smarter. They're smarter because they read the Atlantic and the New Yorker and they went to college and all that stuff. Get vaxxed. mask up. And it's not so much, and even, let me tell you one thing. My dad's 86 years old, right? At COVID. He's barely hanging on anyway. And my stepmom, his wife, she's not part of the COVID people. She was on the good team, the resistance, and she didn't want to get vaccinated, and she didn't get vaccinated. And she's with my dad, and she's my dad's primary caregiver. Well, that side of the family, the half brothers and sisters, they all conspired to sneak my dad the vax, as if you need it when you're 86. Don't get me started on that either. Just totally doing an end run around his wife, the caregiver. And then they were doing text messages, private text messages with me and everybody else, excluding her. It was just, to me, it was all ugly. Just absolutely ugly. I was just like, man. So this is the family that I'm avoiding on Christmas. You know what I mean? And it's strange how when your parents die, there's this big... I don't like the way I'm talking here. When your parents died, when my parents died, I'm not speaking for you guys. It's just weird how when my parents died, there was this weird cloud lifted. Like I spent my whole life basically making the best of it. I didn't realize that's what I was doing. I wasn't consciously doing it, but I realized that every time I told the story of my family, I put this sort of spin on it. Like it was a good thing. I'm glad that this happened and blah, blah. I was always looking for the silver lining, I'm glad I had a dad and my mom were separate and I didn't ever have to watch them fight and blah, 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 blah. But let's just be honest. It's not true. If you have a family, if you have parents that don't know how to work out their own relationships, the likelihood of you being able to work out a relationship is just low, because I think that stuff, those skills you learn as a very young person. I don't think these are skills you pick up later through some class or whatever. I think if you're young and you see your parents getting along and loving each other, and that's the example you have in your family, and they know how to run a family and be loving and all that other kind of stuff and keep peace in the home, then I think you are probably going to be able to have those skills too. But if you don't, if you see the opposite, and there are exceptions here, but I think you're very likely to not be able to figure that stuff out. So it's no surprise to me that, almost nobody of all those siblings, there's a couple of stepbrothers have had good, long-lasting relationships, but it's just been a lot of divorces and bachelorhoods, in my family. And that's nobody should be surprised by that. And I'm not sitting here whining or complaining about it, but it's Christmas today, and probably is there a day of the year when that is connected with so much pressure about talking about family? What other day of the year is there more pressure to be thinking about family? Well, I don't think there's a day. I don't think there is one. So Christmas is it. So why not just talk about it, right? Anyway, so, finding out that the first stepmom was my mom's best friend, and there was never any apology. Like there's never, and this is kind of going back to COVID too. I'm kind of doing two different things in here. Christmas, you think, oh, Christmas is good. Maybe this is a time of year to forgive. This is the time to let bygones be bygones and stuff. And it's just like, okay. But can you forgive somebody who doesn't want forgiveness, or who doesn't even acknowledge that they've committed a sin? Is that a thing? Or is that just pretending? I'm pretending. Like if I were to say, I forgive you, that's not a real thing. That's a self-serving thing, you know? For me to say that, that's just me saying, oh, I forgive. It's kind of like me letting myself off the hook. But it's not really true, because you can't really forgive somebody who doesn't want to be forgiven, who hasn't requested forgiveness, and who hasn't done anything to suggest that they wouldn't do it again in a heartbeat. You know? Oh, you should forgive your stepmom for wrecking your family. But she hasn't asked. She's never asked for forgiveness. She's never once even suggested that she did something wrong. You know? I think my mom kind of asked for forgiveness a number of times, you know, in a roundabout way, but it was more like guilt tripping. She would pull out the card whenever there was a trouble. Oh, I'm a terrible mother, you know, that kind of thing, which just put you on the back foot to go, no, you're not, you know, crying, all this shit. But this is the Christmas conversation right here. God, there's so much, but boy, that COVID thing. Whew, 2020, the year of crystal vision, you know, perfect vision. People really revealed who they are, you know? Some of my family members, I remember watching one of my brothers that I thought was kind of clear-headed and reasonable. And no, he went to a birthday party at my sister's house, and he masked up his own kids because my sister demanded it. Demanded that the children mask up, you know? And I was just like so disappointed in him and ashamed of him in a way. It's just like, man, where are your balls? You know? How are you just being an obedient little automaton? You know? I thought you were smart. You know, I thought like, how could you turn on your own children like that? You know, your job is to protect your children, not mask them up and inject them with poison that you don't know what it is. Somebody runs at my kid with a needle of undisclosed ingredients, and let me tell you, they need, you know, anyway, I get censored for saying what I would do. These precious little kids, you know. To me, it was just disgusting. And how do you forgive those people, you know? Like, even if I say that I want to forgive them, because there is this weird desire of wanting to forgive, but I don't see it doesn't seem like realistic. It seems like it would be a lie. Again, because there's been no attempt of that side to apologize, you know? I see sometimes these little posts from my sister. They keep adding me to these family threads. I know they don't want to, but they do. I hate group text messages, by the way. It's just like, talk about a virtue signal thing. It's just like, okay, people, you know, you can get on the phone and call people. We don't need to have these group text messages where we all try to make ourselves look like we're put together and all that. You know how it is. Fucking group text is so, I hate it. But on Apple now, I can't even leave the goddamn, you can only leave the group text message thread if everybody's on an Apple. If even one single person is on a non-Apple phone, you can leave it for a second, but as soon as they text, you're right back in it. You know? But yeah, forgiveness, it's not easy. I'm sure a lot of you guys are dealing with, I don't know how some of my other siblings who are on kind of the same side as me somehow are able to, you know? They're still getting together with them and doing all these things. But I can't, my big problem is I can't keep my fucking mouth shut. That's why I didn't go to my dad's funeral, because A, he was dead and he wouldn't miss me. That's the number one thing. If I was going to his birthday party, you bet I'd be there because he'd be there. But he was dead, so he's not going to miss me. He doesn't care if I'm there. And I just realized, no, if I go there, I'm gonna say something. I'm not gonna be able to keep my mouth shut. So I didn't go to just spare everybody my not being able to keep my mouth shut, kind of a thing. But I'm totally rambling now. But the point is forgiveness I don't think it's possible. It can't be a one-sided thing. I think if a forgiveness requires two parties, I don't buy this stuff where it's a one-sided thing. In fact, one of these sisters at one point told me that they forgive me. And of course, you think I like that? No, I fucking was like, what do you mean you forgive me? I didn't do anything to you. So if you're trying to forgive somebody that doesn't want your forgiveness or isn't asking for it, it doesn't work anyway. In fact, it just increases the tension or whatever, the resentment or whatever petty bullshit is out there. Forgiveness, for forgiveness to really happen, there needs to be contrition, and a desire and restitution. But when I think of these sisters of mine and their arrogance during COVID, they don't know anything. These people don't know anything. These guys in the coats, these doctors, these nurses, but the nerve to pretend that they knew. And that's all it is, pretending. They were pretending to know that vaccines are great. They were pretending everything. The TikTok dances, all that. It was all a show. The opposite of self-flagellation, The self-glorification was just so disgusting for me. And I just think of my sisters, and I just think, I don't want to think about this, but I think, how many people did they give remdesivir? And after that remdesivir, how many went on intubators? And all those people that went on, I know that, I've been told that the statistics are that 80% of the people that go on intubation die, because intubation shuts down the body. It's like a last-ditch thing that you're probably better without intubation, quite frankly. But I just think my sisters, these arrogant, just arrogant. Oh, the confidence and the arrogance, You better get vaxxed. Oh yeah, what's in the vax? Don't ask questions. My sister got what she would call COVID. One of my other sisters that's on the resistance, right? She didn't get vaxxed, but she came down with whatever was going around. Call it COVID if you want to. I don't give a shit. You call it seasonal illness. But, the big thing when it was going around is that the only difference then is it's like everybody's hyper-focused on suddenly seasonal illness. So everybody's, for the first time in the history of the world, is comparing their illness with everybody else's illness on Facebook. And, so there's this psychosomatic kind of thing that's going on where no matter what you get, you think it might be that, and, things compound, and the psychology behind it has never been the way it was with the glowing screen in front of everybody's face telling you, COVID, 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 danger, danger, danger. Anyway, so my sister got her seasonal illness with that, and it was pretty bad, But I've had the flu before that was pretty bad. I didn't tell anybody about it because there wasn't this thing. Most of the time when you get sick, you don't talk about it. It's not like a social topic like, oh, my seasonal illness, I, had the shits and barfed for 4 days, Anyway, she got it. And how did my nurse sister respond? Now do you believe? Now are you going to get vaccinated? Almost like using the opportunity to shame her. Ugh. If you think that didn't throw me into a rage, boy, let me tell you. This is my Christmas conversation. But what else are you supposed to think of on Christmas? When it's all about family, and most of us out here with family members, I just can't. What's a bigger betrayal in a family than when the family sides with Fauci? Let me tell you something. If your brothers and sisters side with Fauci and Pfizer instead of with you, that's bad. That's bad. I'd almost rather they slept with my best friend. You know what I mean? Because that's forgivable. That's like, okay, you had your weak moment, your weakest hour. But even then, you got to ask for forgiveness. And if you don't ask for forgiveness, I'm sorry, I can't pretend to give it. And if you don't want forgiveness, that's even worse. If you don't want to be forgiven, people who don't want to be forgiven for what they did in 2020, I don't want to be around them. I know this is getting long, but during COVID, I hate even calling it COVID, by the way. I only use the word COVID to identify the scam of COVID, that era. I'm not referring to the disease. I'm referring to the era, that operation. But I had this dream that one of my nurse sisters, I had a dream that there was a commotion. It was like on a beach or something. And my sister was chasing down one of her own kids with some military people, And they tackled her daughter. And she held her daughter down while military doctors injected her. And I was freaking out. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? What do you do when your family, your own flesh and blood, your parents, stop caring about you and start caring about what authority tells them to do? Pfizer and Fauci. How do you forgive? Have you guys been able to forgive? For real? And how did you do it? Because I've not even come close to reaching a point where I think that that's even in the cards for me. Because, again, the whole forgive and forget, I forgive you, I release you. I've heard these things before. And I go, I don't think that works. I I forgive and release you. That's arrogance too. I forgive you. It's like, no. You don't forgive anybody who doesn't ask for forgiveness. The most you do, that's what I would consider to be an attempt at a psychological trick to move on, where you get the upper hand somehow. It doesn't even seem fair, really, because I don't think it really acknowledges reality. And reality is that forgiveness requires two parties, Anyway, so that's what I'm doing today. That's what I'm thinking about just now. I'll try to spin this in a positive way, but for any of you that are still listening, which I doubt there are more than one or two, if you have a good family and your parents stuck together and love each other, I know there's a grass is greener quotient to this, but I don't think you know. Well, maybe you do. You probably do know. I hope you know how fortunate you are, and how grateful you should be. I have gratitude for my own life. I'm grateful to be alive. Don't get me wrong. My journey is my journey. I hate that term. My life is what it is, and I'm happy to have it. But I'm not going to lie and act like somehow the way I was raised with 18 siblings and 1,000 divorces, professional divorcing family, that is somehow ideal at all. And I'm not going to spin it to pretend that it was somehow ideal. Spin is bullshit. We don't need to spin things. I think it's better to deal with reality. What sucks, sucks. What's good is what's good. If you can, focus on the good. But you got to acknowledge what's bad. You do. You can't just pretend it doesn't exist. I mean, you can, but it doesn't change it. Anyway, Merry Christmas. I hope you really do embrace your family if you've got a good one. And for those of you who don't, who have complicated situations like me, I feel your pain. I'm right here with you. High five. Merry Christmas. Thanks for listening.